This year was the year of shedding. Next year wants to be bold action, rooted in purpose and deep feminine power. And you are being asked to step forward to become the bridge. Between Christmas and Epiphany, starting December 25th, a sacred 12-night portal opens. The Melissa called it the dreaming window, the Magdalens called it the starfire corridor, and I call it the 𝗧𝗿𝗂𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗃 This window has always belonged to priestesses, oracles, and visionaries, women who know they came here to move energy on the planet. Women ready to give structure and rhythm to their transformation so that a greater vision can land not just in their hearts, but in their reality. And this year, I invite you to walk these 12 nights intentionally through guided transmissions, meditations, sacred symbols, and DNA light codes. You'll journey through 12 archetypal gates of remembrance, each gate unlocking a leadership key, clarity, a Sophia consciousness strand, aligned purpose. And on the 12th gate, you meet the woman you are becoming. A renewed body of light, a new story, gifts activated, purpose clarified, and leadership embodied. If you are ready to step onto the altar of your light, if you're ready to bring your soul work into the world, not someday, but now, then this journey is your initiation. It is time to rise, not as a lone star, but in constellation with your allies, your guides, and guardians of light. Your initiation and your return. Click the link in the show notes to join us for this 12-night pilgrimage into Sophia consciousness, or visit my website, soulwisdom.ch, 𝗧𝗿𝗂𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 busy time, no pressure, one email into your inbox with all that you need every day. The gates are opening. Will you walk through? Welcome, Sacred Seekers. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you find yourself dancing between traveling alone, having solo time on sacred experiences, and family travel, while still exploring and experience the magic that sacred site traveling has to offer, then this episode is for you. Please welcome with me my friend and sister, Alisha, as she is a dedicated guide on the journey of self-discovery and spiritual evolution, serving as a conduit between intuition, ancestral wisdom, and the divine feminine. And her journey has traversed multiple thresholds, from coaching and personal training to supporting families and individuals through trauma. I'm very excited to have this conversation because also her travel stories are a very, very unique kind. So welcome, Alisha.
Thank you so much, Julia. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. And we've been talking about having this conversation for a while. So I'm really, really excited. And also, I just, or maybe you give some background information also as to where you're tuning in from right now, because you have quite a special setting and setup, which also, yeah, ties into the story that we're going to be talking about. So please tell our audience a little bit more about yourself and how you came to be physically and energetically where you are today.
Right. So I am calling in from Ycy𝘂𝗿𝗄𝗏, Oregon, on the southern Oregon coast. It's a really beautiful little hideout in Oregon, and it's actually where I'm from. And the number of times I've left, this is always where I return to ground. Whether I plan to or not, it has a magnetism that calls me back. And most of the time, I don't want to come back, if I'm honest. And then once I get here, it really is what I need. It's the ley line, if you say. It's the place that really turns those experiences into a sort of gold within me. And I think I had posted about this about a year ago after returning from Egypt and France, and how that I was on the search for the Magdalene. And when I came back here, I found her more deeply than I'd ever found her before.
Oh.
And in the cave systems on the beach here. And just when I travel and then I come back, I see where I'm from in a different light. And I see how beautiful it is and how blessed I am to be from here.
I love that. And it's so pivotal, I feel. And it's the heroine's journey in a way as well. Like we need to venture out just to come back and actually like
Right.
find what we've been looking for all along right in front of our face.
Right. Yeah.
So you say the Magdalene has been a a pivotal figure for you and also like archetypal energy that you connected and what ultimately also like um, called you on the journeys. How did you come to realize that?
I think it's one of those things where, she had been with me my whole life, and I just had to wake up and see it. I just had to wake up and feel it. Like I'd been guided as a child without even knowing it. And then somewhere around 2017, 2018, I got this really strong call to make a lot of big changes in my life. Things that I was really attached to and I thought I needed started to fall away, or I actively started like cutting them out. And so for me, a lot of my connections start with books. So I started reading books.
Hmm.
I was driving a lot for my work at the time, so I was listening to a lot of podcasts. And just through hearing other people's stories and connections, it started to guide me on my way. And then just, like Avalon. I remember my mom. My mom loved the stories of King Arthur. And she would, we'd watch all the TV specials on it as a child. And so it just ingrained in me that that was the place I wanted to visit. That was the place I wanted to experience. And it just has grown. We have a family of storytellers, I would say. My brother's a writer. And so it was just through story really started buying the Magdalene in my life and in the world.
Wow, that's beautiful to connect back to also the lineage, and I feel the gifts in the lineage in that way. And what's been like the central calling for you that really made you travel finally? And also, how did you know what were the places that you needed to go to retrieve codes?
Wow, that's such a big question. I think it wasn't so much. I think the calling was always there. I sometimes need a big push to do the things I desire. And so the calling, the push that helped me answer my calling was sisterhood. It really
Mm.
was meeting certain women who saw my light, who saw the value I hold, who saw my gifts, who created space for me and then created some opportunities as well, some invitations to join them on their travels. That was a huge, it wasn't so much my answering my calling, but that was the avenue, I would say. And then in answering my calling, it was a big dose of permission. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a mother. And so when I took my first big pilgrimage, that was almost 30 days, I left three children at home. And of course, I did everything I needed to do to make sure they were cared for. My husband was home, and then his parents came out and stayed with them. And so everyone was cared for. But it was really that permission to take that space for myself. And then also just, setting up the supports to be able to do it.
I was just gonna say you're not just a mother, you're a mother of, is it four now
I
or
have four now.
four?
Yeah, I had my fourth on our last family experience.
That is so incredible. Okay, but let's stick with your solo travels
Okay.
for a little moment longer
Yes.
because I know like how many women are out there and that permission piece that you were just talking about, like how hard it is to overcome guilt, shame, and like all of these emotions to quote unquote leave your family, leave your children behind and be selfish enough or self-confident enough
Yeah.
to answer and say no, like I need to do this for myself in order to fill my cup so I can give from a full cup. Take us a little bit on that inner transformation that happened until you got to that point.
Yeah. So there's two pieces. The first piece was I started small. And starting small for me was 3 retreats to Hawaii. So they're shorter. They're 5 days. Hawaii, it's a plane right away from Oregon, but it's not too far. So I started small, and then I got to the point where it had to be done. Like I had to fill my cup. My husband even recognized that when I came back from experiences on my own, I was more connected, I was more available, I was happier. And so it was like the slow training of smaller retreats. And I should say it actually even began before Hawaii. So there's a beautiful piece of land about 3 hours away from here called Cedar Bloom. And there's a Spirit Weavers gathering. So I started there. That was my first solo experience, was going to a women's gathering in Oregon. That was just 3 hours away. And I spent 5 days there. So I did start small and I spaced them out. And then it just got to a point where the people around me, the people who love me and were helping me and supporting me and being a mother, and I'm also a nurse, they saw how much I needed it. And in creating space, I was able to come back and give from a full cup, as I say, a full cup. But it really is true.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was from multiple 5-day trips to 30 days, which is like a
Yeah.
whole month. Wow.
Yeah. And that was 7 years. It took me 7 years to build up to that.
Okay, thanks for saying that. I feel that is
Yeah.
very important to mention that it's a process in itself.
Yeah.
And also, as you mentioned before, like having, not just like dropping everything, but also making sure that at home there is a support system in place that
Definitely.
can hold the space while you are away.
It was a six plan. And that was sometimes we have to get out of our comfort zone to ask for help. So it wasn't super comfortable for me to ask my in-laws, to drop what they were doing to come spend time. But they also realize that, they never ask us to do this sort of thing. Like this is important. And you might be surprised when you sort of let your guard down a little bit and ask for people in your life for support, how they will show up in that way.
Mm. So what would you tell the women who have like all of these reasons why that cannot
Yeah.
go?
Yeah. I would say start with like a solo experience, like book out 3 days or even 24 hours, find something close, whether it's like a cabin on a lake or, a camping area that has like tiny homes, but just find something that's close that has nature in it and take your favorite book and just practice. Because the other thing I wanted to add is when I went on my big 30-day experience, I spent like the first 5 days missing my family. And at some point, and kind of like, and it's not really punishing myself, but kind of like internalizing that I was gone. And I really had to stop and be like, no, you chose this and you're going to enjoy it. And you're not going to punish yourself for leaving. So I think it's a mixed bag of feeling like I can't do this because I don't have the support and no one's going to do what I do like I do it. And then you actually take the step to do it. And then you want to punish yourself. Like I shouldn't have left. I shouldn't have taken this time for myself. So I feel like small doses, small steps, small retreats, maybe build something for yourself really help in easing into it.
Hmm. I think it's super important what you say because, even for myself, and I'm certainly not in the same constellation, but still like having a family constellation and whether going or also facilitating trips, there is always that energetic thread and the letting go piece
Mhm.
while things still happen at home. It's huge. And that is part
Yeah,
of the experience as well. And for me, also Egypt was a pivotal experience where, I was like, I wanted to push it away and like have it out of my field because I thought that no, it's disturbing my experience. But then I understood that, well, this is actually part of the lesson and part of the experience. So how
right.
was that for you?
Yeah, what I was just thinking of is it's not just applicable to women with children. Women caregive for older parents.
Mm.
Women caregive for animals. I think I think we can always find a reason not to do it and not to take the leap. So I think for me, and it's a part of at some point as you're working with spirit or the Magdalene or however you define it, it's this attunement, this listening of like where you're being called to and how you're going to get there. And you may get a call, go to France, and it could be like, I don't have, it's in April, or I don't have this. And then it's just surprising how you open up to that, how things tend to fall into place.
Yes, very true.
Yeah.
Very true. So, how did these 30 days transform first your inner landscape, but then also how did the traversing of these sacred landscapes, how was that a medicine of maybe like patterns that needed to be seen or healed in your relationship with and to your family? What came up for you then?
Yeah. I felt my family along the way, the entire journey. I find myself, when I stopped sort of punishing myself for not being with them and for leaving, I started finding them in the places. So, like the
Mm.
White Springs, I went to the White Springs and I just desperately wanted my daughter, my oldest daughter, to be there with me. And I could see her there with me. And we'll get there, but that's one of my favorite places that I went with her. I felt my husband in a lot of the places in France and just that divine union, especially the baptismal pools. I felt the longing of, the mother while I was traveling in France, and that connected me back to my second daughter, Remy, who was having a really hard time when I was gone. And just that longing to feel something connected me to her. And I felt my son. I had one son at the time. He was a baby. He was 13 months. And I felt him really through all of it. And this is like a whole nother like golden thread, as a shared mentor would say. But I think my last three children who came in really called in these experiences and these destinations. So as one of those, like, it's sort of like a spiral timeline where they were born, but this trip had already occurred. Like it was already agreed to before they came in that it had to happen. It was a spiral, a spiraling that kind of collapsed, that they were born and this trip had to happen. And in our timeline, my experience was that they were born and the trip happened. But, and any other like experience, it could have been reversed. So in a sense, they were with me along the way. And I feel like my children, when they were spirit babies, guided me through before they even came through to have this experience, to be their mom.
Mm, that's amazing. And also to have the trust that this is what it is. I love that.
Yeah.
Hey, all, if you enjoy the episodes and enjoy the work that I'm putting out there, you would do me the biggest favor if you hit the subscribe button below, leave me a review, leave me a comment, and just engage in my content so I can continue to have these beautiful conversations with amazing humans, and we can dive together every week into this beautiful planet that we call home and the sacred site medicine that it has to offer. Thank you so much. I'm receiving so many pictures. So it's like, okay, where do we go? Where do we go? Do you want to share a little bit more about really like so there is a threats with the family, but then obviously also like you chose this to be a solo trip because there was something in it for you and for your soul
Mhm.
path.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I, in some ways, this was like my final initiation in this subset of initiations. And so this experience, I needed this solo experience. Well, in one way, I needed a solo experience to be able to usher my oldest daughter through her first menstruation.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I needed to have these experiences. I needed to go to these places to collect these keys and codes. to fully support her in becoming a maiden, a woman. And I don't know that I knew that before now, but you asked that question and I realized that's what I needed. I needed to do that for her. I needed those keys and codes to have that divine union, that equal partnership with my husband. That was really an experience of me saying, I need this. And I need this to fully show up as the woman in your life and the woman that I am.
That's a powerful one, I guess.
Yeah.
It, especially when, when like with 4 children, the archetype of mother is very, or becomes very prevalent at times, I guess.
Right. And then just in a practical sense, I needed the practice of traveling internationally to do it with my family. You know what I mean? I needed the practice. I needed to go through the airports and be like, I'm doing this pretty easily by myself. And what is it going to look like with a family of 6?
Yeah. 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 Wow. So when we were just preparing for the conversation, you were telling me that, there was a point where you came to realize that you could continue doing this on your own, but actually, no, you have to. I think you said like you have to onboard your family, or that was kind of like the wording that you
Yeah.
used. And I feel that is also the point where many women come to eventually, where it's like, yes, I can continue doing this for myself, but also it is so much more beautiful and it gets so much more easeful if this really blends in and just like becomes fully who you are, no matter if it's like just you or if it's you in the family constellation.
Right. Yeah. It was the integration into my family. So I'd been on this journey, the sacred journey for 7+ years, and I'd been doing it on my own. I'd been going to either women's gatherings or retreats or participating in workshops. And it was something I did. And of course, in passing, we would talk about it, but it was always something that mom did. And even sometimes joking, like, oh, mom's a witch, mom's this, mom's that. And then at some point I just realized, like, I mentioned that it was like my solo journey was like my final initiation in that subset of initiations. And then for me to move on to the next set of initiations, I had to integrate my family into it. I had to bring my partner into it, my husband, and I had to start to create space for my daughter to participate in it because she's becoming a woman.
Mm.
And that should be, for me, that in my life, at least, that is the like stepping stones of it as a mother, is that I'm learning these things. Like I'm reclaiming these things in my life and relearning them so I can pass them on to my lineage. So what happened in Egypt when I was by myself on a solo trip in Egypt was I realized I had all this desire to create things and to be something and to be someone. But really came through to me in Egypt was that my lineage was my legacy, that it didn't matter all that much if I wrote a book or if I, started a great group or if I had a really fantastic profession. Those are all really important in my development. But really, in the scope of my life, my lineage is my legacy. And I'm learning these things, not to write that book, but I'm learning these things to pass on to my children.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. And then when you returned after these 30 days, because you also speak of integration, how has this integration and sort of like up leveling into the next spiral, how did that make itself known in you, but also in your family constellation?
Those up levelings always feel like they're like, you always think like, oh, I'm going to go on this experience and I'm going to come back and I'm going to be glowing and it's going to be amazing. And it's like that for a little bit. And then I just feel like I get like punched in the stomach a little bit, if I'm honest, like a good gut punch. And it's like, oh, shoot, life can't be as I knew it before. And sometimes that comes really easeful. After my 30-day, it came really easeful because the inspiration to travel as a family came from my husband. And I was the one who was like, no, I don't think I want to do that. Like, I'm very settled here. Like, I love my house. I don't really want to leave. And when I came back from that solo trip, I came back and told him, I think we can do it. Like, I think we can do it.
Wow.
I think we can be happy. I think we can release a lot and move forward. And so coming back from that experience was very exciting because we decided we were going to do this. I say it kind of like, oh, but it was very exciting at the time. I got pregnant within like a month of coming back. Yeah, I got pregnant. There's one winter I'm like, I can't go on any more retreats with you because every time I go somewhere with you, I come back and I get pregnant. And so I came back. Yeah, I came back, and with a month, I found out I was pregnant, and it wasn't planned, but we were very excited for it. And so then that became, how are we going to travel and have a baby? And can we? And that was about 2 months of just going back and forth, back and forth. And ultimately, we're like, we have to. We have to travel and have this baby to have the birth that we want to have, and to have this experience. So that was my integration from my solo trip.
Which doesn't really sound like an integration.
No, it wasn't. It was just an addition. Yeah. Yeah, it was just yeah, you're right. It was just like, all right, on to the next thing. In many ways, yes.
So, okay, then there's the decision that you're going to travel. And I know that you traveled for quite a while, meaning that you literally packed up everything that you had and went on this Europe trip. That's not an easy decision to take. What were the hiccups, the emotional ups and downs that,
oh my goodness,
especially you and your husband worked through?
It was a lot. It was a very, very busy season because it wasn't just like we packed up and went to Europe. We closed a business.
Yeah.
We had an auction. We had an auction and sold all of our things through an auction. And not just like 16 years worth of things that we had collected as a couple. So it was like really putting our whole relationship on display in our driveway for people to come and bid on.
Wow.
I don't have a lot of like connection to like material things, but that was really hard for me because when you saw all those things and the memories of them and then people like touching them and, like rummaging through them, you're like, oh, that's my things. Like that's my history. So we had an auction, and that was a lot of hard work to prepare for. And then we put our house on the market to sell. But to do that, we had to finish the remodel that we had been doing for 9 years.
Oh.
So there was like the subset. So basically, I handled planning our trip. I handled booking our accommodation we're going to do and our plane tickets. And my husband was very much the forefront on finishing the house and, dissolving his business. And we worked together on the auction. We hired a company to do that. So, but yeah, there was a lot of, as I would say, like muggle things we had to do, to prepare for this epic journey. We had to get really good at things not going the way that we had expected.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. One of my strongest phrases that came to mind over and over and over again while we were traveling was, it can't just be good when it's good. Yeah. Yeah. We really had to embrace the difficult and
okay. I feel like I want to just stay one moment longer at the piece where you're like, okay, your husband closed down the business, because I can only imagine like how hard it is. And like, no offense to the divine masculine, but thinking of so many couples that I know, I could rather imagine the woman like taking that leap of faith than the men and the masculine consciousness, who is even more about, okay, let's provide, let's be safe, let's be stable. What's been that leaning into the trust finally?
Yeah. It's interesting because this came from him, this idea. And it was still really hard for him to close his business. He's a workaholic. Right. He loves her. And we got pregnant for the 4th time. We'd had 2 babies. And those 2 post periods, he wasn't able to spend a lot of time with us. He was feeling like he was missing out on time with the babies. And just watching, having two babies back to back and watching that, I think he was really realizing how fast that goes by.
Mm.
And so when we found out we were pregnant, he was like, I really just want to be there during this time. And when we were going through the auction, there was many times I had to go to him and just say, go through this box, just go through this box and sort it out. Figure out what's important to you, figure out what's not important to you, because he would avoid it when there was things that he felt attachment to that he wasn't sure what to do. And we weren't present on the day of the auction. He didn't want to be there for that. So there was him, being the leader in this. And then there was him also kind of having to bump up against it. But in regards to being a provider, we have found new definitions to that.
Beautiful. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. So how and where did you start?
Okay. This is a really funny story. So we originally wanted to start in Portugal. My husband's family is ancestrally from Portugal. His great great grandfather immigrated from the Azores. So originally we wanted to start in Portugal, but a 3-month tourist visa is not enough time to have a baby and recover. And then we were like, what happens if we end up in the hospital? Because we were planning on a home birth. So what happens if we end up in the hospital and we don't speak Portuguese? And so we went round and round, and we were like, maybe Mexico, maybe Guatemala. I actually talked to a midwife from Guatemala. And then finally, I was like, why are we avoiding the obvious? England allowed for a 6-month tourist visa. We speak the same language. So I asked my husband, I was like, if we went to England, where would you want to go? And he was like, Cornwall, which I had to giggle a little bit because I was like, why Cornwall? And he was like, one of his favorite movies at the time was Fisherman's Friends. It's the sea. And he was like, because of that movie. So we just Googled midwives in Cornwall. And we found a really lovely midwife on the border of Devon and clicked. And what she did love is like right then and she was like, I want you to take 2 weeks, 2 weeks to cool off and really think about this. And as a US citizen, that's not something you experience in the United States. Usually with me, it won't be available. So her saying, I want you to take 2 weeks and think about this was like, you're the right person. You're going to give us that much space to make this big decision. You're going to give me a lot of space. And so it's Mark hit, we were eager to both her. And we started planning our first experience in Devon. I was really excited to go to Devon because of Dartmoor. And at January and February, I was like between 32 and like 36 weeks pregnant, just hiking all over Dartmoor.
Wow.
We children up. We bought them little rain suits and really amazing. So we saw some, and we loved Dartmoor. It was really fantastic there. And I liked Devon because I was driving distance to Tadgel. And so we were able to make a lot of weekend trips between the two.
I remember that one time when I saw a picture of you at St. Nachlan's Glen. And that was, yeah, when I felt like it's truly these King Arthur codes for the baby boy coming through. And yeah, that was beautiful.
That was like 2 days before I gave birth. Yeah, we knew we had limited time, and we knew once the baby came, we weren't going to be able to do these long trips. So the week we went to Glen, St. Michael's Mount.
Wow.
And I got so many funny looks. People were looking at me like, she's going to give birth, like walking out the thing.
Like right here.
I made a lot of English people uncomfortable. Yeah, they were like, she's going to give birth. But it was amazing. It was a great initiation to the birth portal.
And how was that for, your other children to not be home, and also like have you maybe not being fully available for them while not being in their usual environment?
definitely. So we already homeschooled our oldest. So that was a smooth transition for her. In the beginning, she struggled with missing friends. We enrolled her in dance class in England. So she got to meet some other girls her age. Our, she was 3 at the time. Our 3-year-old daughter, she really missed my mom. She was very close to my mom, but they got time with my dad. So before we left, most of their time was spent with me. To spend after we had the baby, I spent a lot of time with the baby. And they got to spend days, all day with their dad. And he would take them to the beach and out to the parks. And so while they were missing grandma and they were missing some friends, I think they were really enjoying that time with their dad.
Hmm. Hmm. Seems like you really found a very good balance to like hold the entire dynamic together.
Yeah, we did our best to find familiar things. So, like finding a dance class for our oldest daughter was a familiar thing, even though she was very, very nervous to go to dance class in a new country, girls that she didn't know. I think it was really fun for her because they were very curious about where she was from and she got to learn from them. So, I think the balance was definitely getting to experience new things, but where we could, we found familiarity.
Mm. And then what was next after England?
All right. So my original dream was we'd go to Wales. I wanted to go to Wales and, hike all over the countryside with my newborn baby. And I quickly realized that that wasn't going to be feasible. And so then I switched gears and we spent a month in London, which I really enjoyed. We stayed in a small townhouse in London and we took the tube in every day, which was exciting for us because where we live in the United States is very rural. There's not even a bus system. So just riding the bus and the train was like an experience for my children. One of the things I love about London is all of the museums are free. And a family of 6 and made having activities very accessible.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I was curious. I was very drawn to Greenwich, which I was curious about in regards to my own ancestry and that being a port. We spent a lot of time just playing at the park in Greenwich and going for walks around there. One of the places I loved in London was St. Dunstan's in the east. It's an old church that was bombed in World War. I can't remember if it was World War I or two, but now it's turned into a garden. So
Mm.
the remains of the church exist and they fortified it and now it's a garden. It's really beautiful. But we would kind of have a plan and we'd go out for the day and see what we could see and have a lot of picnics. And it was just a really sweet time.
How do you feel that, bridging and also educating your children that it's not actually about travel, but it's also really about connecting with places and with the heritage, the lineage, the legacy? How did they take it? How did they
Um,
bring their specific lensing to it?
yeah. So I feel like that is a culture and a tradition that's already ingrained in our family with my oldest daughter. So we do, like at Samhain, we do our ancestral altar. We do a lot of, we talk about ancestry a lot. We talk about where we're from, where our people are from, and what that looks like. And it's unique because, I'm sure it's this way for a lot of families, but my husband's ancestry is so much different than mine that our children are quite diverse in their ancestry. So in exploring, we did a lot of speculating. So as we were going through museums and it's like we were learning about something that happened in the 1700s, we'd be like, oh, maybe we have an ancient ancestor that was here for this to build curiosity. So we just did a lot of speculating to build curiosity of like, maybe we have a lineage that experienced this, or maybe our lineage was here. And they really enjoyed that.
So what I'm hearing is that there is also a lot of playfulness involved
Oh
and just
yeah.
make it accessible for children in their way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in traveling this way, playfulness is key in many different ways. So in the spiritual way of connecting it playfully to them. And then also in the practical ways of just like navigating. It's not easy traveling with a big family. And how do you keep it playful? We sing a lot of songs. We're that family that turns
Yay!
everything into a song. And it really is. It's just like you would do any sort of energy work. It's family energy work. So
Mm,
if you can sense into the energy of your family, you can sense it like, oh, we're going somewhere we don't want to be. And then it's a little bit of energy work of how to flip that or turn it or change it before it gets to a point where you can't recover.
yeah, yeah. It's sweet because, I like tend to think of us humans and when we collect these codes as tuning forks. And
Yeah,
then so that that is what it is. Like so you tune, you tone, you sing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the sea shanties were a thing. So the sea shanties actually brought us to Devon and they were with us the whole trip. I don't remember my husband singing a lot and openly before we went, but now he'll just randomly like break out in a sea shanty to like get the kids' attention. And I love it. I love it. My 2-year-old knows probably a dozen sea shanties, and he'll just start singing them in the back of the car. And I can't help but think that that's an ancestral code, right? Like I can't help but think that we have a lineage somewhere, a line that worked on a ship or came back and forth between the United States and or the colonies and England, and they survived through their shanties.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So when you think of all the different, destinations or maybe even like specific sites that you went, is there some that you feel that like one of your family members had a very distinct connection or activation that was
Oh,
happening?
yeah. We spent a month in France in a place called 𝗧𝗂𝗿. And my French is horrible, so I'm probably not pronouncing it right. But it's a place that even the French would be like, you're where? My mom came to visit and she came through Paris and stayed with some friends and they're like, why are they there? We've never even been there. And I chose this, yeah, I chose a place because my maiden name is Partney. And so there's a village in France called Parthenay that we believe that we're from. And so we went to Parthenay and we stayed in the general area where the greater extended family would have been. And we went to some sites for Melusine. Are you familiar with Melusine?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so Melusine is a like a water nymph. There's a lot of different mythologies related to her, but I'm going to stick to the French mythology. She was a water nymph, a fairy, and I'm going to do a very short version, who she got mad at her dad and her mom cursed her. And so every Saturday night, she would turn into a mermaid or serpent. She would grow a serpent tail. And so every Saturday, she spent it in the bath. And during this time, she met a man and she fell in love with him. And she was basically told him, like, if you marry me, I'll bring you all the riches. I'll build castles for you and I'll have all these for you. And so they married. And her only rule was to spy on her on Saturday night while she was bathing. Well, he broke the rule and he spied on her. And she grew wings and she turned into this serpent dragon. So this like malevolent mother. And the legend is she built a few castles in this area that we do. She built castles and she built churches and she really fortified this area. Like it was very rich because of her. We went to some ancestral lines, and I believe that the Parthen family was instrumental in the writing or the rewriting of her tale from a French perspective. And so we went to two of her castles, and the first time I showed up to one of them, the gates were locked, and I was so mad. I threw a big toddler tantrum because the gates were locked, like in front of my whole family, because I really wanted to get in. And I was like, I could just scale that fence. Like here I am, like 3 months, not even 3 months postpartum. I'm like, Jimmy, I could just scale that fence. And he's like, you're not scaling that fence to get in. Like we're not doing that. And so I kind of pouted because he set boundaries and I wasn't going to try to break in. And so then we waited, and my mom came to visit. Um, and so about 2 weeks later, we went back, and the doors were open. So like
Oh.
the issue was the reader, the card reader. You had to pay to get in. The card reader was broken, so we couldn't pay to get in. So the doors wouldn't open. But when we went back, the doors were just open. You didn't even have to pay to get in. And it was one of those moments of like, not right now. Like, I don't know if my mom needed to be with me. There's other things we to experience before we went, but it was really incredible. And it's on a deep gorge river that winds through, and there is a lot of like her tower was still there that she built when we got to go up into it. So that was one of the places that I really felt like a ancestral line there pretty strongly.
Mm, amazing. Just when you said the name, what came to me were like the parthenogenesis and the bee priestess
Mm,
lineage. I don't know if that is in
yeah,
any way connected, but
yeah, yeah. She's connected to a lot of different lineages and archetypes, I would say. I would say someone might listen to this and be like, that's not the story. And they might have a different story for her. And they're all true. She's just connected to a lot of different
yeah,
storylines.
yeah, yeah. I love that. And also the fact, that like your mom, like as another part of the generation of the lineage was there. So it's like pop, pop,
Yeah.
pop, 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 all lined up.
Yeah. And was it that day? It was that morning that my oldest daughter started her first period, started her moon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What a threshold.
Yes, it was.
So looking back now, what are maybe three things, like three main things that you would recommend for anybody who's listening to this and saying, okay, I want to take my family on a trip?
Hmm. Yeah, I would say start the communication with your family. And there should be some sort of like agreement, see, right? But also guide it. Guide it in a supportive way for your children. It was really sort of easy with our youngest two because we just kind of packed them around. I would say just guide the conversation. Get some clarity on what it is you're thinking that you want in this experience to guide that conversation, and then just present it in a way that would really bring your family together. Get an idea of what you want. Like, what is your intention? And maybe that's what you need to do first. It's like, what is your intention? Maybe with the other adult that you're traveling with, or if you're traveling solo, just be really clear in what your intention is and be open to the fact that it may not always look like what you want it to look like. So have your intention, but be very flexible with the outcome of it. Then the third one would, I think you talked a bit about this, was just be really playful. Find ways to be playful in the hard times and the times that you're having to like navigate either language barriers or transportation. Just find the play, whatever that looks like in your family. So for us, that was songs. That might look like games for somebody else, or storytelling, or, physical movement, but find ways to play to really move that energy and to navigate those difficult moments together.
That is so helpful because I think, part of this these ancestral rituals that have been ingrained, but we have forgotten, or in our modern day sometimes feel like, oh, this is not needed. But there is that energetic signature that helps not just us on an individual level, but really as that collective nervous system of the shared nervous system of the family to, like, as you say, like process energies and like maneuver ourselves maybe into a different, yeah, trajectory or timeline.
Right, right.
So you're back in the States now. What's
Mhm.
next?
I know that's the question of the year right now is what's next? Everyone asks us what's next. Right now, we are where we are. I've returned to my work as a public health nurse, helping families navigate trauma. And when I said earlier that we found new ways to define providership, my husband's home with the kids. Um,
Yay!
yeah, so he's home with the kids and he's providing in that way. and he's really just supporting us all in this like in between time. The kids and him and the girls will be going back to Italy in July. We found a
Oh.
community there for summer camp. And then we're not really sure. I'll be meeting up with them either for, a vacation, or we'll see what happens. I have some ideas. It always sparks with an idea, right? An idea. We'll see. But there's a lot of different futures in regard where we could go and what we could do. And we're still navigating which one we want to jump on.
Mm. Do you think that after, a time of such long travels and adventures, it is even possible to like be stationary in one place anymore?
It's really hard. It's really hard. It's really hard because it's so accessible in some ways. Like when you kind of dig through the things that hold us back and you address them, it's really quite accessible. And slow traveling is what we did, much different than vacationing. Slow traveling is more affordable than people realize. It's basically having your same living expenses wherever you are in another country. So we don't vacation when we travel. We're not going out to eat all the time or, having big experiences. We're really just integrating into the local community and lifestyle, which makes it accessible. So yeah,
Mm.
so after 8 months abroad and that month before, the year before, I don't know if we could stop. Yeah. But at some point, I also realized we have to have some stability. And so that's where we're at is like, how do we continue to create stability while feeding this passion that we have for traveling together?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for bringing in the slow travel as well. I feel that's a very important element in this entire discussion of like conscious travel. It's another
Yeah.
lensing, but it's also a very important one.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you could probably listen to this whole conversation and be like, yeah, but it comes down to the slow travel and making it accessible. And then also that's how you learn about people. And that was our whole goal. My whole goal was one of my desires in raising children is to raise them to be global citizens. And for them to do that, they have to have a greater understanding of how different people are and how similar we all are. And
Yeah.
the best way to do that is to live in other cultures.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Couldn't agree more. Okay. So is there any final words of wisdom that you want to share with the audience today?
I think if you're afraid to do it, then it's probably the right thing to do. Yeah, the
Yeah.
hard things are usually the right things. And it's just exploring what's holding you back
Mm.
regarding travel or anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Where can people find you if there is questions with
Yeah,
regards to travel
right,
adventures or any other
right.
services that you're offering?
Yeah, so I am looking at sort of rebranding right now. So I've been taking the last 3 months to kind of hide out. So I haven't been on Instagram, but I'm returning after 100 days on the 13th. So you can find me on Instagram. It's my name at Alisha.𝗂𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀. And then maybe I'll share with you in the near future, I'll be starting some more writing workshops. It's called Story Work to help people write their stories, whether it be an origin story or a myth, a family myth, or a birth story. So you can be on the lookout for that to come probably in the spring of 2026.
That is beautiful. I love that. I will definitely keep an eye out for that. I what I see like when we talk all the time is really like you sitting by the fire with a lyre or even a harp and just like singing and telling stories. So just like these old bards, yeah, did in ancient times. That's definitely like in your bloodline and in your energetic field.
That's the highest compliment. One of my goals is to learn how to play the harp. So that's the highest
Oh,
compliment. Thank you.
you should.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
think you know. I think you know. It's only a remembrance.
Hey, right. That's lovely. Thank you.
Alisha, thank you so much. I know that this will be so helpful for many, many out there. And yeah, it was a long awaited conversation. Thank you so much for sharing all of that, vulnerable and like very personal pieces. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and spending time with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this.
Yay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I guess that there is so many pearls of wisdom. Please check out the show notes and Alicia's details to connect with her and share this with a friend if you think that this was very helpful. And just, yeah, spread the word. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.